Hidden Leaf Stadium. Shikamaru groaned as he finally trapped Tamari within his shadow possession jutsu. After a few hours, he was able to use the natural shadows created by the stadium walls to extend his jutsu's length. He walked out of the grove of trees, forcing Tamari to do the same. The girl gritted her teeth as she was forced to walk towards the Nara boy. He had been not 1, but 5 steps ahead of her the entire fight. Shikamaru raised his hand, making Tamari do the same. "That's it, I quit," Shikamaru announced. The stadium was quiet. Too quiet. What? Why are you forfeiting?" Tamari asked, slightly annoyed. "I'm almost out of chakra, so there's no point if I have to fight another match," he responded. And because it would be too troublesome, Shikamaru thought to himself. "You gotta be kidding me," Tamari thought with a blank stare. Although she was angry that she had used most of her chakra, and had displayed her arsenal off to the enemy, despite knowing of the coming invasion. Hayate and Genma also gave blank stares, knowing full well the intelligence and the laziness of Shikamaru, as well as many of the other Nara. Winner by forfeit, Tamari of the Sand. The onlookers gave an applause, acknowledging the battle of wits that they had seen. The two exited the stadium and went back to their comrades as Genma announced the next opponents. Next up, Hinata Hyuga versus Neji Hyuga. Neji let a cool, confident expression spread across his face. He turned to Hinata, prepared to speak, but before he could, his cousin kissed Naruto on the cheek and disappeared in a small shower of raindrops. Neji silently grunted as he too left for the arena. Kurenai was slightly startled by the water-styled body flicker technique Hinata showed. "I'm surprised that she didn't use the hidden leaf body flicker," Kakashi inquired. "To put it bluntly, Kakashi, it's old-fashioned," Naruto acknowledged, making the one-eyed Jonin sulk. After all, Haku used an ice version due to her Kekkei Genkai, and I have met a few others who used unique styles as well. Hinata's high water affinity lets her easily perform the body flicker. As for myself, I have so much chakra that I could perform the wind style, fire style, and lightning style body flicker without wasting any more chakra than normal. Plus, it just looks better. Kakashi put on a pouty face underneath his mask, but he did have to acknowledge that the hidden leaf body flicker was outdated. Guy gave him a reassuring pat on the back before the two turned back for the match to begin. Hayashi Hyuga sat in the stands with his daughter and Hinata's sister, Hanabi Hyuga. But due to Hinata's banishment, Hanabi never knew her well. All she knew was that her older sister was too weak and paid the price. Hiyashi pointed down at Neji, telling his daughter to pay close attention to him. Despite the boy being from the branch family, he had a certain soft spot for him. He was the son of his late brother. Plus, he was considerably strong, despite being from the branch family. Neji gave a cool smirk as he watched Hinata slip into her stance. "I'm surprised you decided to stay instead of forfeiting. Big talk coming from you. If you are so sure you can beat me, then let's chit-chat more fighting. I'm not as talkative as my sweet Naruto." Neji frowned at this statement. He moved into the gentle fist stance and readied himself for combat. "Why is it that you defy your destiny? Fate has decided that I will be the victor." Hinata rolled her eyes, making Neji's own twitch in frustration. Fate is a fragile thing. considering it doesn't exist. Neji did not respond, and instead jumped towards her with impressive speed. The taijutsu that ensued was fast-paced. Neji struck quickly, while Hinata remained on defense. Neji attempted to knock her off balance, but when she flipped away, he decided to focus on her arms. Every strike he threw, Hinata perfectly deflected. Each time they clashed, Neji would push more chakra into her arms. His intention was to disable her arms, using a slower version of the gentle fist. Unfortunately, it was not working. He realized this when he felt his cousin's palm strike him in the chest, sending him flying back due to a burst of wind. She knows water style and the air palm technique, Neji thought to himself. He flipped in midair and landed on his feet. He barely blocked a punch to his face. He continued to block as Hinata went on the offensive, changing the tide of battle. She attacked furiously, not giving Neji time to think, only to act. She faked a kick to the knee before twisting and hitting him in the face, knocking him down. Neji rolled away as Hinata's shinobi sandal landed where his head used to be. He went in for another flurry of jabs, but was forced to block a chakra-powered punch to his arms. He skidded across the dirt. Hinata appeared right in front of him, pushing her open palm up towards his chin. He floated in midair for a moment, before landing back down with a thud. He quickly rose again and dashed at his cousin. Why does Hinata not finish the fight quickly? Kakashi asked. The others were thinking along similar lines, even Mike Guy and Rock Lee. Guy knew his student was strong, and Lee had been unable to defeat him without removing his weights or using the 8 gates. Hinata might not talk as much as Naruto, but she also likes to have some fun when it comes to fighting, her and I responded. Just like Naruto with Sasuke, Hinata is playing with Neji, looking to see how strong he is, both physically and mentally. Asuma raised an eyebrow. Is that really necessary? Shikamaru was the one to reply, startling everyone. One of the necessities to being a shinobi is to be able to handle mental and physical pressure. Sasuke met the Nine Tails inside Naruto's mind, and now Hinata's gonna do something similar. I'm willing to bet it'll have to do with all that destiny talk he spouts out all the time. Everyone turned to the blonde Uzumaki, expecting a further explanation. Naruto remained silent. He merely watched as Hinata laid the beating on her cousin. Neji smirked as he watched Hinata's arms finally go limp. He had finally pulled off the well-placed strikes necessary to disable her arms. He straightened as he watched his cousin stare at her arms blankly. Your arms are disabled, Hinata. You are powerless against me. You should accept your fate and forfeit. Neji stated in a confident tone. I'll pass, Hinata responded, making her cousin twitch in irritation. Are you so blind that you cannot see when you are at a disadvantage? The only people who can remove the effects of the gentle fist are the older members of the Hyuga. Hinata shook her head. And are you so blind that you cannot see what is behind you? Neji's eyes widened as he whipped around to see 2 Hinatas attack him. He instinctively activated his Byakugan, making the veins around his eyes bulge. One jumped over him to land beside the original Hinata, while the other continued to fight him. As he defended himself, he watched the clone beside Hinata pull out a pair of paper tags, roughly twice as big as the normal size. The clone placed them on each of the original's arms. The clone then performed a single-hand tiger sign and said, Activate. Burst of chakra erupted from the tags and swirled around Hinata. Slowly, the chakra seeped into Hinata's disabled arms. With his Byakugan, Neji could see that her chakra pathways were being forcibly opened from the extra chakra. Neji grunted in anger as he quickly dispatched the clone he was fighting and threw a kunai at the other. With its job complete, the clone allowed itself to be hit. "When did you..." Neji started, before being interrupted. "I created the clones before the match, just in case you pulled off the gentle fist on me. As for those tags, they were created a long time ago." "Father, what were those paper tags Hinata used?" Hanabi asked innocently, not realizing the anger her father was feeling. Hiashi cleared his throat before answering. "From what I can tell, they are modified explosive tags. The gunpowder was removed, but the seal stayed the same. Instead of exploding, they released the chakra that would normally be used to activate a regular explosive. By using a larger tag, it was able to store more chakra." Nabi nodded in surprise at her sister's strength. "I must admit," Yashi thought, "whoever created those tags are impressive seal masters. If what the two of them said is true, the Nine-Tails brat, or my excuse for a daughter, made them." Hiashi cursed under his breath, making sure to not let his youngest daughter hear, as he watched his oldest daughter and nephew. "You and Hinata created those seals?" Asuma questioned. Naruto shook his head. "Actually, we redesigned the regular explosive tags. We redrew the seal onto a larger tag, removed the gunpowder, and used a secondary seal to store extra chakra inside the tag." Kakashi tilted his head in thought. "So, you combined a storage seal with a modified explosive tag?" Naruto nodded in response. "How the hell did you come up with that?" the Jonin inquired. "It was the only way I could think of to counter the effects of the gentle fist, without needing my vast amounts of chakra. And it will be a while before Hinata will have the chakra necessary to force her chakra pathways open herself." Kashi hummed in response. Hinata flexed her arms, happy that the seal had worked. Back when they designed the seal, they had Naruto act as the test subject. It had been successful, but she was glad to know it proved effective against other Hyuga. She looked to see the annoyed face of her cousin. She let out a sigh as he settled into an all-too-familiar stance. As Neji prepared, she sent chakra to her storage seals, drawing water from them. The water responded to her call and covered her entire body in a thick layer of water. "My own original jutsu. Water style, aqua armor." Neji watched in confusion, but tried to attack. He ran at Hinata, who was now surrounded by her own original jutsu, aqua armor. "You are in range of my technique," he proclaimed. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. 2 palms. 4 palms. 8 palms. 16 palms. 32 palms. 64 palms. Neji released an onslaught of attacks. Unfortunately, each strike he dealt did nothing to the water armor. His strikes were absorbed, and with each hit, Hinata struck back with greater force. The water surrounding her hands were as sharp as needles, piercing Neji's body, causing great pain. 8 trigrams, water style, 64 palms. Once Neji's attack was finished, Hinata released her own attack with greater force. Neji was having difficulty standing. His chakra reserves were on an all-time low, and his network would have been completely shot if Hinata was not focused on keeping him alive. "I know you still have more fight in you, Neji," Use it so we can move on, Hinata ordered, dropping her aqua armor. Neji gritted his teeth. His anger was at the boiling point. His eyes were so focused on her that he did not notice his shinobi headband untie itself and slip off of his forehead. Everyone gasped, seeing the markings that sat upon the Hyuga's forehead. Hinata's eyes widened slightly. She had never seen the caged bird seal up close. It consisted of a green X with 2 lines on either side, each with a small curve at the end. The girl loosened her stance, her eyes softening. So, this is what the main house uses to keep our brethren under their command. What could you possibly know about it? You have never had one of these marks on you before, Neji growled, pointing at the green seal. Hinata tilted her head in confusion. I thought all the details of my banishment were public knowledge. Everyone except Naruto, Hiruzen, and the rest of the council knew what Hinata was referring to. Hinata shook her head before continuing. Before I was banished, my father thought it best to place a special, aged bird seal on me. Instead of on my forehead, he placed it on the back of my neck. The regular version seals the Byakugan away, making sure that it cannot be taken by enemy nations. My seal is placed on my neck, so that, upon death, my Byakugan is completely removed from my skull and transported back to my father so that he can keep them for whatever reasons. The stadium was silent. Everyone enveloped in their own thoughts about the matter. Hinata advanced towards her cousin. So you see, Neji, all this talk about destiny and how it is your fate to win this fight is pointless. I have already defied fate by being banished and being given the seal. But after all that, I still choose to defy destiny. I have become strong. She turned, pulled off her sweater, and pushed her long dark hair to the side. Her neck was now visible. And I've had my caged bird seal removed. She finished. Where the modified seal was once imprinted onto her skin, a faint outline of the seal was all that remained. Neji's eyes felt like they were going to explode. The other members of the main and branch family were in utter shock. Hiyashi was barely keeping himself from releasing all the killer intent he had. Naruto created a special seal removal jutsu after years of research and training. If not for him, I would still be a slave to the main branch. Hinata put her sweater back on and turned back to Neji, speaking in a whisper. One day, once we become stronger, Naruto and I plan to do everything we can to remove the caged bird seal from every Hyuga in the branch house, including you. Although we may not have always been on the best terms, I still care for you, Neji. I want to help you and the others, but I can only do that if you will trust me. Neji was silent, his entire ideology shattered. His eyes locked with his cousin's. Hinata's eyes were unreadable, so he couldn't tell if she was lying. Should I believe her? Is it actually possible to remove the caged bird seal? All this could have been a ploy created by Lord Hiyashi in order to obtain further control over the branch house. But then why would she be with Naruto of all people? Is it because the Hyuga want to gain control over the Nine Tails? No, that seems unlikely. Whatever else Naruto might be, he's not easily manipulated. Not to mention he's exceptionally strong. Neji was utterly confused. His mind was trying to find a reason to not trust his cousin. Yet, at the same time, the offer was so tempting. To finally be free of the wretched, caged bird seal would be a dream come true. But was he not telling the truth? No, just like Naruto, Hinata is not a liar. At this moment, she could easily defeat me, and possibly even defeat Lord Hiashi. But that's not important right now. Do my fellow branch family members want this? Do they want the chance to be saved? He glanced up at the crowd, searching for his clansmen. Each face he saw held the same expression: hope. The silent exchange between them meant that Neji had made up his mind. I will do what I must, Neji whispered. Hinata smiled. In that case, how about I show the Hyuga what a banished princess can do? Neji nodded slowly. He was prepared to engage in mock combat, but he suddenly felt himself being launched back by a large amount of chakra. As he tumbled in the air, he caught a glimpse of a large blue dome surrounding Hinata, picking up enormous amounts of dust. A faint grin spread across his face. So, she knows the palm rotation as well. Her father gave up a strong heir. She truly is what us members of the branch family have been waiting for. Hinata finished her spinning to see Neji land on the ground with a thud, scattering more dust. She watched as Neji struggled to stand. Finally, he decided his fakery had gone on long enough. In truth, he wanted to be taken to the hospital to heal the multiple wounds he had suffered during the fight. Genma glanced at Hayate. The Jonin was silent for a moment from the shocking display, before raising his hand. Winner by knockout, Hinata Hyuga. Hinata let out a long breath as she watched Neji being carried away by the shinobi medics. A small smile graced her lips as she gave him a brief wink as he was carried away. She then turned to stare at her father and little sister. Hanabi had a simple smile on her face, not holding any hatred to her older sister. Her father, on the other hand, was barely able to contain himself from jumping down in front of his daughter. He would have if someone had not grabbed his shoulder. He turned to face one of the Hyuga elders who had gone with him. Your banished daughter will pay for her insolence, but the Sand and Sound Shinobi must be dealt with first. The Hokage wants us to save our strength for the fight to come. Hiashi bit back a growl, but nodded. He knew the Hokage's orders, and he would stand by them until the enemy had been defeated. He watched with disdain as Hinata gave a slight nod of her head in his direction before exiting the arena. We will be taking a 5-minute break before the semi-final matches, Genma announced. First, we will have Hinata Hyuga versus Fu of the Hidden Waterfall. The second will be Gaara of the Desert versus Naruto Uzumaki. As the waiting began, Genma and Hayate turned to each other and began to chat. The Genin are surprisingly strong this year, especially that young couple, Genma pointed out. Hayate nodded. They are tough, including their Aburame teammate. He managed to fight the waterfall Jinchuriki until she resorted to her tailed beast. Speaking of, I noticed that the Gaara kid has skipped all the way to the final round. Genma acknowledged his remark. His friends from Sand probably pulled some strings to keep him at full strength for the coming invasion. Hayate agreed. He looked up at the sky before turning back to the crowd. I wonder how many casualties we'll have. He coughed out somberly. Genma nodded. Let's hope Naruto's plan for the One-Tails works. Otherwise, those casualties are going to skyrocket. Hayate coughed in reply before turning to the citizens, who were completely unaware of the danger they were in. Of 5 minutes have passed, and the semi-final match between Hinata Hyuga and Fu of the Hidden Waterfall commenced. Fu, who had returned from the medical room, let out a cry of joy. The injuries she sustained against Shina were healed because of Chomei's chakra. Their fight had been a challenge, but she was still hungry for battle. Since she had access to 3 tails, she wanted to push herself even harder against Hinata. Hinata had similar thoughts. She too wanted to push herself while fighting someone of Fu's strength. She flashed down to the battlefield, meeting Fu, who stood a few feet away. An intense staring contest started between the two. Hayate and Genma sweated slightly at the rising levels of ki between the two. You may begin now! As soon as the match had begun, the two dashed at their opponent. Hinata engaged her aqua armor, while Fu went into her 2-tailed chakra cloak. Fist met fist in the center of the stadium, creating a massive shockwave that pushed the viewers against their seats. The dust that was kicked up blocked the view of the fight. Kakashi lifted his headband to reveal his Sharingan so that he could watch the fight ensue. Naruto channeled more of Kurama's chakra into his eyes so that he could see as well. Inside the cloud, the two girls engaged in a bout of taijutsu. Fu had the upper hand in terms of strength, with Hinata superior in speed, making them well matched. Fu contemplated on using her B's genjutsu, but reminded herself that Hinata and Shino had the same sensei. Instead, she ordered her bees to swarm Hinata and confuse her. It was ineffective, as Hinata was using her Byakugan to evade the bees. Hinata sent a right punch aimed at Fu's face. She ducked and got past Hinata's defenses. As she was about to slash her with her chakra-coated hand, Hinata did a spin on her one leg, putting herself behind the teal-haired girl. She went to strike her shoulder, intending to disable it momentarily. The strike did not connect, as Fu corrected her fall by using her arms like a spring to push herself into the air. Mid-flip, she performed hand signs, creating a downpour of shuriken. Thousands of spinning blades flew towards Hinata, each one laced with tailed beast chakra. Hinata frowned, realizing that even with her great speed, she would not be able to avoid them all. Not that she could, since the entire sky above the arena was covered with them. Even Genma and Hayate had realized this, and used an earth jutsu to hide. Hinata resorted to her rotation technique. She disengaged her aqua armor and began to spin at high speeds, releasing chakra from every point in her body. A blue dome appeared, making every shuriken bounce off it harmlessly. She completed her spin and was instantly attacked by Fu, restarting the taijutsu bout. The rotation technique had pushed all the dust away, revealing the two shinobi grappling with one another, fighting for dominance. They stared into each other's eyes, searching for weaknesses. Finding none, they released one another and jumped a few feet away. The two instantly began hand signs. Water style, liquid bullets. Insect style, wave of bees. The two jutsus clashed, killing the bees and stopping the water in its tracks. Unfortunately, the swarm had blocked Fu's view, allowing 2 more bullets to strike her from above. She was forced back and managed to dodge an axe kick from above. As she flipped out of the way, she forced the 3rd tail of Chomei's chakra to flood her body. The 3rd tail sprouted from her back, and once again tried to overwhelm Hinata with her strength. Hinata pulled out 2 kunai and held them in reverse grip. Fu then went on the defensive, since she, stupidly, did not pack any of her own. She suffered a few scratches, but was quickly healed by the orange chakra. She dodged a roundhouse kick, and suddenly felt herself being thrown into the air by an explosion created by the tagged kunai Hinata had thrown behind her. She tried to sprout her wings, but was prevented by another explosive kunai behind, in front, and above her. The shock from the blasts drove her out of her tailed beast cloak. Her mind was disoriented, her eyes barely able to make anything out from the smoke. She fell back towards the dirt, and found herself being struck by a fist, accompanied by hundreds of water needles. The needles pierced her body, sending enormous amounts of pain throughout it. As she landed to the ground with a thud, she was vaguely aware that her chakra network was completely disabled. Chomei realized this as well, but knew that Fu could not handle any more of his chakra for the time being, even if it was to reopen her network. Fu had lost. Surprising, since Hinata was not a Jinchuriki herself. She had not even used a suppression seal. Hinata panted heavily as she walked up to Fu, who was barely conscious. "You fought well, my friends. Once you gain full control over Chomei's chakra, I doubt I will be able to defeat you." Fu chuckled softly. "You can count on that." Hinata smiled before knocking her out with a swift chop to the neck. Hayate called the match, and she watched Fu get carried away. Hinata Hyuga will be moving on to the final round. The second semi-final round will be Naruto Uzumaki versus Gaara of the Desert, Genma announced. "May these genin step forward." Naruto instantly flashed down beside Hinata, with Gaara following using a sand-styled body flicker. The redhead was already grinning savagely, leaking waves of ki by the thousands. "Finally, I will destroy you, Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto shrugged off the ki and turned to his girlfriend. He planted a kiss on her forehead, making her cheeks turn a light pink. Hinata smiled before flashing away to rejoin the others.